Howdy, it's Jennifer Nichols with Bridges Counseling Center. I just wanted to take a moment today and talk to parents about language. And I know that's a huge topic, and it's probably not what you think I mean when I say language. Today we're going to tackle two different types of language that you're going to have in your house. And I just want to challenge you and ask you to look at what it sounds like. So the two things we're going to talk about today are the word no and the statement or the phrase, I promise. So those are two very extremely, I can't emphasize how important those two interactions are with your children. The way that we interact with our kids regarding situations where we're telling them no, and the way that we respond when we make a promise to our children is extremely important. And it tells our children a lot about who we are as people, but it also teaches our children about the rules of interacting with the world. I know that you're going to hear a lot of this and you're going to think, that's Jennifer's blowing this way out of proportion. It's not that big of a deal. But truly it is, because it is a foundational place. The home is a foundational place where kids figure out how they relate to the world. It's where they first feel boundaries put in place. And if those boundaries are not firm in a loving, caring, compassionate way, then they don't understand them. And then as adults, they are not able to fully interact with those boundaries or put them up for people in their lives. So let's look at no first. So when you tell your kiddo no at home, what does it look like? I want to really caution you to be firm about what no is. No in your home should mean no. It doesn't mean maybe. It doesn't mean ask me again in a couple of minutes and maybe I'll say yes. Or even worse than that, keep asking me over and over again, and then finally I'll just get so irritated and frustrated that you keep telling me or keep asking me the same thing, and I'll eventually just give in and tell you yes. So if that's the boundary that is a no boundary in reality, that's creating a no boundary around the word no. If that's how your child experiences no, it will be very difficult for them to interact in the world. Now, not every kid, I'm not going to be, unreasonable here and say that every child that has an experience like that at home where no doesn't really mean no, that they're going to grow up and be worthless human beings. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is it's going to be much more difficult, and depending on their impulse controls and depending on their ability to delay gratification, depending on a number of things, it will be difficult for them to navigate the world. And sometimes it will be very painful for them because the world will tell them no in no uncertain terms for the most part. And that's seen in schools. If you know me enough, I've been in the schools for over 10 years. The last 5 of which were in Cy-Fair ISD as an elementary school counselor, but I've been a counselor in all levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and I have seen the effects of parents not putting a firm boundary on no for kids. They don't know how to accept it from the world, and it can be quite painful at times. As parents, we love our kids. We love them so much, and we don't want them to feel pain. We don't want them to be traumatized or uncomfortable even. But if we don't set those boundaries firmly in place at home, they will feel them from the world, and it will be much more uncomfortable and have sometimes, life-threatening ramifications. So if we see kiddos that can't accept no into adulthood, you see kiddos that can't, that when they interact with authority, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's the law, and they cannot interact in a way that is a safe interaction with those entities. Maybe they don't understand what no is. They don't get it because nobody ever laid those boundaries down for them. There was always someone, maybe it started with parents, and there was always someone that would bend on that would not hold them accountable and say, no is no. I love you so much, and I love you enough that I'm okay with you being angry with me. I'm okay with you being mad at me because my job is not to be your friend. My job is to be your parent. You were given to me by God to shape you and mold you and help you become a successful citizen and a human being, that cares about others and understands the boundaries that others put in place. So that's a quick kind of look at why no is so important. And it's something that, it feels sometimes like you're just beating your head up against a wall. I have 3 children of my own, and some of them are better than others at accepting no for an answer. And I've done the same thing. I have been very clear about no with all of them. And, everybody's different. And sometimes it takes kids longer to understand that. But if you muddy the waters with maybe, or you teach them that if they harass you enough, that eventually your answer could be possibly maybe yes, then you have lost this battle because they will continue to do it. So really and truly so important for their lifelong success as human beings, being able to interact as a student, being able to interact as an employee, being able to interact as a spouse, as a law-abiding citizen, to understand that no is no, and there is no working around it, okay? The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about was promise keeping. I've really worked with parents about this as well, and that is what you say you must mean. If your children grow up learning that when you promise something, that it doesn't really mean that that thing is going to happen, or it doesn't really mean that that thing won't happen, because a promise can be either one, like I promise this won't happen, or I promise this will happen. Then they learn that that's not reliable, that people aren't reliable, because you're their trusted adult. You're the person that has been entrusted with their care and their protection. And if you, that person, make statements of I promise this or I promise this won't happen, and then they do, then that becomes a message that this is unreliable, this is not safe, and I can't trust people. So be very leery about what you say you promise or don't promise to. If you think that there's any chance at all, in some remote outside chance in the universe, that this may happen or it may not happen, so it's contrary to whatever you have promised, then never use the words I promise. Don't ever say that. Always use language that is reflective of what the outcome most likely is going to be. So say your kiddo wants to go to the pool today. Let's go to the pool, Mom. I really want to go to the pool. And you know that it's something you should do. It's a beautiful day. They need to get out and exercise, but you're not real sure. You've got some things you got to do. So a correct response to that would be, we're going to have to see. And kids have to understand that too. They have to become acquainted with ambiguous answers. It's just better if they're not always ambiguous answers. You do need to kind of stick to your guns on some things. So don't be ambiguous all the time. But if you say, I promise we're going to go to the pool later, and then you don't, I know it seems like a small thing. Well, it's just not going to the pool, But you do that enough, and again, you become an unreliable, unsafe adult. Your words they don't carry a lot of weight, okay? Same thing happens a lot of times. Kids may see a family member pass away, or they have a friend whose family member has passed away, or maybe their dog or their cat passes away, and they want reassurance from you. Promise me you'll never die. And a lot of parents with very well-meaning hearts, wanting to comfort and make their kiddo feel safe, will say, I promise I'll never die. And of course, you're thinking in your head, well, surely by the time I do die, they'll figure out that, that wasn't a real promise. I can't promise you that I'm not going to die. But you don't know. The reality is that every day is borrowed. We don't know what our life looks like. I could leave this office today and on the way home have a car accident. That is the truth. That is life, right? And so you can't promise. You can't make promises for things that you're not responsible for. You have a due diligence to keep yourself safe, but there is absolutely no way that you can guarantee that you will not die tomorrow. You can't, because life is beyond our immediate control sometimes, So be very careful when you make promises to your kiddos. Make sure that your language is precise and it reflects the truth, right? And if you don't know, it's so totally fine to say, I don't know. Kids respect far more when we are honest with them in an appropriate way, in a developmentally appropriate way. Like, I don't want you to go off board there and overshare. We don't want to overshare with our kids. But when we are asked something, when they want something of us, or when they want to do something, and we're not sure, or we don't know, the answer is, I don't know. And then you can have a conversation about it. I know those can sometimes be irritating, and they can be lengthy, and they can kind of draw on and on. And it's always okay to say, I'm done talking about this right now. We can revisit it at this time. Put a pin in it, and we'll come back to it at this time. But never make promises that you cannot keep, because then you, the trusted adult, the one that they look for protection and for safety, you become an unreliable person. And then that's how they feel the world, right? If this person who's supposed to love me more than anyone on this earth, if they can't even be trusted for their word, then how am I to trust my spouse? How am I to trust my partner? How am I to trust my friends? How am I to trust my boss? How am I to trust anybody? That can be converted to any type of relationship. So just remember, never underestimate the power of your words. Never underestimate the power and the impact that you have as your child's parent in teaching them who they are as people and where they end up in relation to the rest of the world, right? In the meantime, I know that was a lot, but be brave, be kind, work hard, and I will see you next time. Take care.